Today I want to talk about anti-Semitism. And I already quickly checked YouTube to see what other people had to say, and I was, maybe I shouldn't have been surprised, but I was a little shocked by the fact that most of them seem to be conspiracy theories that are about how the Jews control the media and the banks and the government, and how these people with their conspiracy theories resent being called anti-Semitic, even though they hate the Jews. A lot of them emphasize that they're being critical of the state of Israel and Zionism, and somehow that transfers to making them very sensitive about being called anti-Semitic. And I think it's a bit overblown. I don't fully endorse the state of Israel, or at least their policies, and at the same time, I can definitely appreciate the wealth of Jewish wisdom and culture. First off, let me say a word about the Holocaust, or the Shoah. Um, it's a lot of times, I mean, the way I used to think of it anyway, was this terrible blip on the map of European history, this total aberration where civilized, enlightened nations and people totally acted out of the ordinary, and the monstrosity ensued. But at this point, I think about it a little differently, and the more you learn about European history, the more you realize this was not an aberration from Enlightenment thinking, and this was not something that was unexpected, or it shouldn't have been anyway, that it followed quite naturally from a lot of things people were saying, however terrible that is, but it's true. So most of us are probably familiar with the medieval kind of state of Jewry, the way the Jews were the pariahs of Christian Europe, because they didn't fit into that Christian paradigm exactly. They suffered greatly in the form of pogroms and just persecution and legislation. They couldn't hold land, or couldn't do one thing or the other, or live in certain cities. I know my background is Norwegian, and Jews were banned from Norway for many, many years. They needed a special passport to travel through, like a certain permission to even enter the country, and that's part of the way we think about the Middle Ages as being not the most uh, equally equal playing field, not the most enlightened time, and civil rights weren't really a thing yet. What I have here, this book, is a book on Christian anti-Semitism. It's pretty good. It's pretty thick, as you can see, but not the best book out there, but it's still decent. And it has an interesting table in here comparing canonical law of the Catholic Church to Nazi measures. I'm going to just read a couple of them, and just to show you the continuity of early Christian rules with Nazi measures during the World War II and the Third Reich. So here we have in the Synod of Elvira 306, there was prohibition of intermarriage between Christians and Jews. Parallel that to the Law for Protection of German Blood and Honor, September 15, 1935. Jews and Christians not permitted to eat together, according to the Synod of Elvira 306. Jews barred from dining cars by the Transport Minister and the Interior Minister in 1939. Jews not allowed to hold public office, according to the Synod of Clermont, 535. Parallel that to the law of the reestablishment of the professional service, where a similar rule was implicated in 1933. Jews not allowed to employ Christian servants or possess Christian slaves, according to the Third Synod of Orleans, 538. And once again, a very similar law in the Law for Protection of German Blood and Honor. Jews not permitted to show themselves on the street during Passion Week, same Synod, Orleans 538. and the decree authorizing local authorities to bar Jews from the streets on certain days, i.e. Nazi holidays, December 3rd, 1938, in Germany. Burnings of the Talmud and other books at the 12th Synod of Toledo, 681. Book burnings in Nazi Germany also occurred often. Christians not permitted to patronize Jewish doctors, the Trulanic Synod of 692. And the same thing was put down in the decree of July 25th, 1938 in Germany. Christians not permitted to live in Jewish homes, according to the Synod of Narbonne, 1050. Then the directive by Göring providing for concentration of Jews in houses, December 28th, 1938. Jews obligated to pay tax for support of church to the same extent as Christians, according to the Synod of Girona, 1078. And, let's see if I can read this, the Sozialausgleichsabgabe, which provided that Jews pay a special income tax in lieu of donations for party support imposed on Nazis, December 24th, 1940. Anyway, the list goes on, and everything from, the destruction of synagogues to Jews not or Christians forbidden from going to Jewish ceremonies, all sorts of things. So anyway, the point is that of continuity, that the Holocaust was not a blip on the radar, so to speak. Finally, the last couple minutes, I'd just like to mention a couple things about Western thought and the philosophers, the big philosophers. So starting with the man they call the grandfather of the revolution, that is the French one, Descartes, famous guy, said cogito ergo something. Anyway, some of his writings are astonishingly anti-Semitic. Also, probably the greatest Enlightenment philosopher there is would have been Immanuel Kant. I have a quote here from one of his pieces called The Conflict of the Faculties, where he says, "The Jews should adopt publicly the religion of Jesus. This was the only way they could be ready for all the rights of citizenship." Kant considered that the euthanasia of Judaism, his words, would ensure that Christianity's ancient statutory teachings would be removed. Kant also called for all religious sects to disappear, which would lead to the conclusion of the great drama of religious change on earth, where there should only be one shepherd and one flock. So, I read another quote by Kant one time that was, he said something about even if we cut off all the Jewish heads, new ones would pop up by the morning, or something terrible like that. And let us not also forget the great philosopher Heidegger, who major influence on all Western thought, and committed Nazi, who never renounced his beliefs after the war and never did anything like that. So definitely a sobering thought. This should cause us to deeply question the trajectory of European history and the Enlightenment even, that rather than seeing it as a view for greater and greater freedom, greater and greater liberties, perhaps the Enlightenment project was really based more on racialization, the racialization of the Jewish people more and more, and other races, allowing them to plunder the earth and shoot ahead with technology and etc., etc. But anyway.